This Christmas, the film A Complete Unknown explores the life and early career of Bob Dylan. In an exclusive interview, a lifelong friend of Bob Dylan's recounts stories from their decades-long friendship. Here's Louie Kemp.
We met at a summer camp in northern Wisconsin, right outside Webster. It's called Herzl Camp. It was a co-educational Jewish camp. The reason we went back 5 years in a row is because it was co-educational. Those were great summer romances, and friendships. So, and Bobby and I were in the same cabin the first year. We hit it off right away. Being that we're both from northern Minnesota, we stayed in contact after the camp, and he'd start coming down to Duluth, and that's how our friendship grew. Do things, we're just kids then, So we'd go, for instance, to the London Inn drive-in on London Road, not far from here. That was the big hangout for underage kids in those days before you could go to a club. You would socialize in the parking lot, and then ultimately they would say, let's go back to my house, and we would do that. That was common. Very often there was a piano in these homes, and as soon as Bobby saw the piano, go right to the piano. That was all about music. His main passion, before girls, was music, for sure. And he would go and start playing these rock and roll songs and blues songs that he had learned, starting on the radio. Started off with maybe Little Richard and Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis. Now, if you know Jerry Lee Lewis' style, he would stand up by the piano. Eventually, Jerry Lee Lewis would stand on the piano, and he was a wild man, and he'd pound on the piano and scream those songs, that he sang. Bobby would do that. Now, you got to remember, these were houses of sedate, nice Jewish people, conservative. These pianos were normally used to playing show tunes, Bach and Beethoven. They were not used to rock and roll. And there was always a chaperone there. The parents were always there. And at some point, the parents would get freaked out, and they'd kick us out. We got kicked out of every open house we ever went to with Bobby. We got kicked out of at some point. I'd be trying to calm the parents down. This is rock and roll. This is the music of our time. You should listen to it. You might like it. Out the door, And that happened in Duluth, in St. Paul, and Minneapolis, because we would, on some occasions when Bobby would come down, we'd take the train to the Twin Cities, because a lot of the kids that we met at Herzl Camp, that's where they lived, in the Twin Cities. And we would stay with them, and then they would have open houses, the same setup. And we'd get kicked out of those too. And none of it bothered him. He didn't bother. I've been kicked out of better places than this, he'd shout as we got shoved out the door. In 1959, I think it was January 29th, a cold Duluth Saturday night, he came down from Hibbing, stayed at my house, and we drove over here in my dad's 58 Buick to see Buddy Holly. And that was something that Bobby was very excited about, because Buddy was a big influence on him. So Bobby was born in May 1941. This was January 1959, so he was 17, and I was 16. And Buddy Holly was just 22, but he was already had made his mark, It was a full house, about 2,000 young people, and they were dancing, they were dancing to the music. We paid $2 for the tickets, which that was a lot of money then. And Bobby was determined that we would be right in front of the stage, nobody between us and the stage, right at the spot where Buddy was performing. And we snaked our way. He led the way, I followed him, through the crowd, worked our way through the crowd. And when we got close to the stage, we had to elbow people to get to that spot so nobody would be in front of us. And that's all. He wouldn't settle for anything else. He wanted to be right in front, and we were. And Buddy was performing. Bobby just stood there and stared at him. And Buddy looked down at Bobby. We were both very happy and impressed, and moved by the experience, you know. And he was influenced by that experience musically. Bobby was learning from Buddy as he was performing. I'm sure he used some of the things he learned going forward. The way he played, the way he sang, the way he phrased, the way he moved on stage, all that stuff. You know, Buddy Holly was a good performer. This is a memory that has been held special in my mind and heart, just like it has in Bobby's, obviously, because he talked about it from the stage at the Grammy Awards when he received the Best Album of the Year award. He brought up, he said something to the effect that when I was cutting this album, I felt that Buddy Holly's influence was with me while I was cutting this album. And then he went on to say something like, I saw Buddy Holly perform at the Duluth Armory a couple of days before he died. So that shows you, you know, how dear it is to him. Early on, I became aware, you know, that he was making big waves. I used to run into Beattie, his mother, on Superior Street very often. She would come to Duluth, and we would talk, and she would say, my Bobby this, my Bobby that. She'd tell me what's going on, right in the early days, you know. And then, you know, not long after that, you know, there started to be press. So once he wrote Blowing in the Wind, psh, you know, the floodgates, they just went wild, you know, because he started spitting out these songs of such consequences and meaning that, you know, people were rushing to his door, or you know, who is this guy? And all of a sudden, boom, another album, you know, and all the songs, you know, times are changing, and God on our side. I mean, it didn't stop, you know. It was like a faucet. He was just spitting them out. So, you know, his presence and influence just shot up quickly. The only way we communicated during those days, when he was a shooting star, was through his mother. She would pass, you know, Bobby said to say hello, Bobby's doing this, Bobby said this, and I would, you know, do the same. And that's how we communicated. Then in the late summer of 1972, I ran into Beattie on Superior Street, close to the Glass Block. It was just kind of a focal place downtown at that time. And she said, Bobby told me to tell you that when you come to New York, he'd like to get together with you. That was the first time he reached out. He reached out to anybody from his old friend. That was the first time. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I'll be going there in about 3 weeks. She said, okay, give me your number. Gave her my number. She called me a few days later and said, Bobby said that I should give you his number, and she gave it to me. And he asked that you call him as soon as you get to New York. So I did. I checked into the Park Lane Hotel across from Central Park. I was there on business, you know, the fishing business, the fish business. I had customers there. And I called him. He answered the phone. And it was, you know, the same voice, you know. And we talked for a few minutes. And he said, I live in Greenwich Village across on McDougal Street. He said, there's a cafe right across the street. This is the address. I'll meet you there. I said, okay, I'll be there in an hour. And he came in. It was like old times, and that was it. He invited me to go to Mexico with him when he was shooting a movie called Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. And I went down there and we traveled through Mexico. Of course, he invited me to produce his Rolling Thunder Revue tour. I produced that tour for him. I just gotten back from Alaska in July 1975, okay, with my salmon operation up there. I got back to Duluth, I was unpacking, and the phone rings and it's Bobby. He said, you know, we chit-chatted a little bit, and then he said, why don't you come down to the farm, which is outside Minneapolis. So next day I went down. I drove to the farm from Duluth, where it all started. And we hung out. I think I stayed there 5 days. And we played basketball, and we did all, and we talked about a lot of things. And he told me that he had just come back from New York where he had recorded a new album, and he actually played for me the songs. And this was an album, Desire. And he played me the songs for that album. He said, I want to go out on tour again. I had been on tour 74 with him, the whole tour. He had invited me to come and just hang out with him, and I did. He said, but I don't want to do a tour like Tour 74. I want to do a people tour, a fun tour where the fans will all come to the fans in small, out of the way places, play small venues so they can really enjoy it. And it should be fun not only for them, but for the people on the tour. It should be just a fun experience for everybody and unconventional. We'll hand out handbills 2 or 3 days ahead of time. We won't tell anybody where we're going. Nobody will know where we're going to appear next. And you know what? We're not even going to tell the people on the tour where we're going. I mean, he was rolling, He says, yeah, it'll be like a traveling minstrel carnival show. Yeah, like a review, like the old days. He said, it's not only going to be me. He's not going to invite other performers to come. I said, that sounds great. He said, there's only one problem. He said, well, I was in New York, and I talked to a few promoters. They didn't like it. They said, you're Bob Dylan. You have to do arenas and big auditoriums and travel in jets and sell as many tickets as you can and make a lot of money and all this crap. And he said, that's not what, I told him that's not what I'm interested in. This tour is for fun for everybody involved. And he said, I want you to produce it. I said, Bob, I've never done a tour. He said, Louie, he said, you're a successful businessman. You can sell fish, you can sell tickets. That's his exact words. He was reassuring me. And then we brainstormed some more about how it would work and this and that. We were kind of feeding off each other. And I pondered it for some seconds, and I said, okay, I'll do it. And he said, good, it's going to be great. He says, I'll put together the show. He's not going to invite other people. It's going to be just me. And I'll put that together, and you take care of everything else. I didn't even know what everything else was, but I said yes, And I figured I'd figure it out, So that's how it happened. You guys know Bob Dylan. I know Bobby Zimmerman. Okay, you want to know about Bobby Zimmerman? Is that what you want to know? Yeah. Okay, so he's just one of the boys. He's down home. He's totally has, for an entertainer, he has no ego. I mean, I've met a lot of entertainers over the years because of my association with Bobby. They all have big egos. And they all court press and they court acclaim and all that stuff. He's just opposite. When he goes on stage, if you've been to any of his concerts, he doesn't say a word to the audience. He speaks through his songs. Goes up there, sings his songs, which both amazing songs, and he's gone. Like the Lone Ranger, he's out the door, he's gone. And but Bobby Zimmerman, if you're his friend, we used to talk for hours about everything. He's, sports, everything. He loves, he's well informed, and he's just one of the boys. To me, he's always been Bobby Zimmerman and still is. My friend was not Bob Dylan. That's the entertainer. That's the public persona. I don't relate to that. I mean, I understand it, certainly appreciate it, but that's not who my friend is. My friend is Bobby Zimmerman. And always has been. And there's a big difference. So when he said he was going to change the name to Bob Dylan, I understood that was a professional thing. And he went ahead and made it work big time, obviously. But, to me, I still call him Bobby. Prophet, voice of generations, Messiah, all that nonsense. Yeah, well, they went through his garbage, analyzed everything. Yeah, amazing. Well, he doesn't take any of that seriously. He poo-poos it all. We used to have long conversations about this. He knows what he has is a gift from God, and he's the conduit. And he doesn't feel that he should be taking the credit for it. He feels that the credit should go to God, that he's been blessed. people would say to me, Bob was really lucky. I said, no, he wasn't lucky. He was blessed. Well, luck is a random occurrence. Who knows, what luck means? It's when something good happens to you. If you have that understanding and connection, it's a direct blessing from God. His gift is a direct blessing from God. He knows that.
Thank you for joining us for this exclusive conversation with Louie Kemp, providing a rare insight into his lifelong friendship with Bob Dylan, whom he remembers as Bobby Zimmerman. In celebration of A Complete Unknown, PBS North and 103.3 The North continue to broadcast special programming that honors Bob Dylan's remarkable musical legacy. Stay tuned for more untold stories and unique perspectives from the world of Bob Dylan.